What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about my release date predictions for Hogwarts Legacy in 2022. Now, we've done this before. We talked about when I think that this game could release this year, back when we thought the game was releasing this year, but I thought this would be a really good opportunity. If you guys missed it, this past Friday, Gotham Knights was delayed to 2022. Okay, it was supposed to come out this year, and it was pushed. It was a big deal. I was actually the very first person to cover it on YouTube in terms of the delay, and I know a lot of people were asking me in the Hogwarts group, right? They were saying, how could this impact Hogwarts Legacy? Does this shift things around? And I do think it shifts things around. So I want to use Gotham Knights. I want to use what we thought was going to happen this year to help us predict next year. And in my opinion, next year is going to be a lot of what this year probably should have been, okay? It's going to kind of be like a replica of it. Now, before I get too far in, as always, if you guys are new here, if you guys have been here and you aren't subscribed, please make sure that you do. We're getting closer and closer to even 50,000 subscribers over here, so would love to have you guys subscribed. Bell icon turned on so you know when all these videos go up. And also, we're even closer still to 2,000 followers over on Twitter. If you guys haven't followed me over there yet, Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle. Would love to have you guys over there. Again, you could look me up. The link for that is in the description below as well, okay? So let's talk about this. So, look, I think it's important to, when we talk about what the release date could be next year, is to talk about the release date, what it would have been, I think, this year, okay? Now, I think November was the time. Let's say October, November, okay? Sometime late fall in the holiday season. I really think that that is what they had planned for Hogwarts Legacy. Now, we've said it before, we'll say it again. Warner Bros. Is the publisher here, right? So Warner Bros. Has to deal with all of the games that they're publishing. Now, we've talked about how I don't think you put games like Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, or Hogwarts Legacy. Now, although Hogwarts Legacy is very different than the other two. The other two are also different, but obviously they're both DC, so you can make some, you could say they're closer related. And I wouldn't, disagree with you there. But I really think you keep all three of them very far away. And by very far, I almost mean like every quarter or half year. That's what I mean by that, okay? So I think the original plan... Now, we've heard rumors that Gotham Knights was supposed to come out back this past November 2020. Now, whether or not you want to believe that, that's okay. I think that it seems possible, or at least plausible, that it could have happened, but I think Gotham Knights was supposed to come out the first half of this year. I know a lot of us started saying summer, obviously, as the game, as we kind of went on months and months and months and nothing happened. So I think a lot of us said summer, okay? Again, summer, and then if Hogwarts Legacy comes out 3-4 months later, I think that's enough time. I think that's enough time to that you can give Hogwarts Legacy where they're not going to interfere with each other. I guess Hogwarts Legacy gives to Gotham Knights. And again, I'm not saying like, oh, nobody's going to play the other game if they both release at the same time. No, obviously, they have a lot of, people that would buy them. But that's what I think the plan was. Now, what's interesting, and this is sucky, and this is what's going to make people maybe upset, and by the way, it's just obviously my prediction. I've been wrong loads of times, but when Hogwarts was delayed, it happened back in January, right? This past January, they said bright and early in the 2020 year that Hogwarts Legacy is not coming out, which I thought was very bold, very odd, but they did it. And I think a lot of us, including myself, I said it too, assumed that the new date for Hogwarts Legacy would be probably early spring 2022, okay? Because if the game was supposed to come out like this November and you delay it to the spring, well, I think that, say it comes out in like March or April, that's 3-4 months that the game got pushed, okay? I think that makes sense. It's not massive. It's not a year. And in fact, I literally said back then that I don't think the game would have been pushed a full year. I'd like to take that back, please. If I could have a redo there, sir, I would like to do that. Because in reality, what I see here is I get their different games. I get their different developers working on these different games. I think it's very clear Gotham Knights is supposed to come out first, okay? I really think that. I really... There's not too much evidence because I guess technically you could have thought, okay, well, maybe Hogwarts, for whatever reason, was supposed to be the game that came out in the spring, and Gotham Knights was supposed to be the one that came out, in the fall, right, when they got announced last year. I mean, maybe, but I just think the way they handled it, really, especially, and I guess my biggest evidence for it would be that we got, with both trailers and gameplay combined, we got like 15 minutes of Gotham Knights stuff compared to like 2.5 minutes for Hogwarts Legacy. So that's my best evidence that they gave us more for Gotham Knights because it's closer to being done. Okay, that's what I personally think, okay? So I think now, with Gotham Knights also being pushed, we're going to have probably a redo of this year next year. So I think Gotham Knights is still the game that comes out first and is the game that comes out in the springtime. So February, March, April, somewhere around that time. Technically it could come out like in even January or February, because if Gotham Knights was supposed to come out, say, this summer or even this spring, it would get like a full year delay, okay? And I think that means Hogwarts Legacy is now pushed even further. Now, I will not disagree with you if you say, well, Alex, it doesn't have to be polar opposites of the year. It doesn't have to be February and November, because that's what I would think. I think Hogwarts Legacy is probably a November 2022 game. That's my personal prediction. I will not disagree if you guys throw out June, if you guys throw out August, September, right? If these are predictions that you guys have when you think Hogwarts Legacy comes out next year, which, by the way, let me know in the comments, I would not disagree, because I do think it's possible. I just think that they would probably... I think it just looks nicer and just feels better to kind of bookend your years, right? Or the year of 2022. You start it with Gotham Knights, you end it with Hogwarts Legacy, okay? Obviously, you'd have a couple other games mixed in between. Now, I don't know if anybody would be asking this, but if anybody is, what goes on with Suicide Squad then? Suicide Squad Kill a Justice League. I am going to have a video on that probably tomorrow or the next day, and we'll talk about what I think for that game, okay? But I do think no matter what, even if Hogwarts comes out in June or July or August of next year, I think it comes after Gotham Knights. Something about this situation reminds me, it's not something, I know what it is, but it reminds me of The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, which was a very similar situation in the fact that those two games came out closer to each other. Those two games came out, I think, 3.5 to 4 weeks apart from each other, okay? But again, Sony's the publisher of those two games, different developers, but what seemed very obvious is they wanted and almost needed The Last of Us Part 2 to come out first. Remember, Last of Us Part 2 seemingly was the game that had a lot of issues, that had to be delayed quite a few times, but that was the game that was coming out before. And remember when the leaks came out for Part 2, and then I think they delayed it indefinitely. Remember that? And they took it off of the PlayStation Store? Well, after that happened, they delayed Ghost of Tsushima indefinitely. In fact, I predicted, the day they did that for Last of Us, I predicted they would do that online for Ghost of Tsushima, because I knew you can't leave Ghost of Tsushima's release date, because Last of Us would probably come after it, and so they need to move Ghost of Tsushima as well, okay? And so that's what I think they did. Remember, both of these games were delayed. Ghost was supposed to come out in June, Last of Us was supposed to come out in May, and they were both shifted an extra month. I really don't think Ghost of Tsushima needed to be moved. I actually think it was done and ready to go, and they moved it just because they wanted The Last of Us to come out first. Now, again, different situations, and we don't really even know the reason why that all happened, but I really do think it's very similar to this. I think they want Gotham Knights first. I think they want Hogwarts Legacy second, and then Suicide Squad Kill a Justice League third. Okay, I think that's the order, and if one game gets delayed, the other will. Now, I'm not saying like that impacted right now, like these things happening. I think they actually did happen kind of independent of each other. I think it was just kind of like good timing. I guess like negative timing, but good in their world, where it's like, oh, okay, Gotham Knights needs to get delayed too. Hogwarts Legacy's already delayed. Well, now 2022 is going to be a phenomenal year. 2021 is going to suck, right? But 2022 is going to be better. And again, I don't necessarily agree with the people that say 2021 is terrible. Now, I think there's still plenty of good games. There's actually still 2 Warner Bros. Published games this year, Back 4 Blood, at least that we know of, Back 4 Blood and Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. So that's what I think. I think Hogwarts Legacy. Now, that sucks. That sucks, because Hogwarts Legacy, if you follow my prediction, which again, I don't think you have to, okay? If you disagree, it's okay. But I believe right now Hogwarts Legacy is second half, to be very safe, second half of 2022, which is still a lot longer to wait, which brings up the question of when we would see it again. I still think we'll see it this year. I really, really do. Just like we'll see Gotham Knights again this year. So that's my own personal prediction. Would love to hear you guys in the comments below. What do you think? When do you think Hogwarts comes out? Do you think maybe Hogwarts could come out before Gotham Knights? I don't think so, but it's definitely possible, right? So let me know what you guys think. As always, again, make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, following me over on Twitter, Podcast Now 15 if you guys haven't already. thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you all on the next Hogwarts video.